Yellow. Okay. Okay. Good morning. Okay. We are on Tezvav Amud Aleph, 15a. The last thing we said is we brought a Rabbi Bar Chana Amar Rabbi Yochanan. We had on the bottom of Yudal and the base, Rabbi Bar Chana comes in and he says the name of Rabbi Yochanan, any lo saseh that was preceded by an aseh. Anytime the Torah says don't do something, but before the Torah tells you don't do it, it preceded with what I want you to do. And I say what I want you to do. It's related to the negative commandment. It's related to the lo saseh, but it also stands independent. The aseh, what the Torah tells you to do, applies even if you did not violate the lo saseh, even if you didn't violate the prohibition. So that is the case of lo saseh. Really, in general, we have this rule called alav hanitik laseh. Alav, a prohibition that's followed with an aseh, with a fixing, so to speak. Meaning to say, generally we have a rule. When the Torah says don't do something, right? We said there are 207 times in the Torah says don't do something that carries with it the Makkos penalty, the lashes penalty. Correct, Mr. Haber? There are 365 times the Torah says don't do something. There are 365 lo saseh, but all 365 are not cases of Makkos, are not cases of lashes. 207. And the reason why some of them do not reach the level of lashes, the reason why some don't get lashes is because for some of the lo saseh of the Torah tells us something else I want from the guy. There's something else I want. I don't want the guy says it's not lashes that I want some other fix. Like we said, classic case. If you steal, someone steals, the Torah says, what do I want from the guy? He violated the lo saseh. What does the Torah want? To return the item. That's the fix. Torah is not giving him lashes for stealing. Torah says, don't leave the car until the morning. If you violate that prohibition, what does the Torah want from you? Burn it in the morning. That's what the Torah wants. It doesn't want lashes. That's not the punishment. It's a safety, correct? Now, the question is, what about if there is a fix for the violation, but the fix is not only relevant when there's a violation. The fix or the aseh that the Torah wants you to do is done both as a result of the violation and independent of the violation. So that is the discussion of the Gemara. If there is an aseh, the Torah tells you to do something. When the Torah tells you to do that thing, it's not only coming as a result of a violation, it's coming even without a violation. What status does that create when someone does the violation? Do we say it still has a status of a violation that's fixing with the aseh, and therefore it's fixing with the positive commandment, and therefore it's not subject to lashes? Or do we say that since this positive commandment stands independent of the violation, so therefore the positive commandment is not given as a real fix? It's not coming to remove the punishment of lashes, and therefore he will still be subject to the punishment of lashes. What did you say? So what did it do? It gave you a mitzvah to do if you independent of violating anything, and it also gave you a mitzvah to do if you violate it. It's like a double in a certain sense. Maybe like we find sometimes if someone defamed his wife, mostly Shemra, so sometimes he's going to get a double whammy. He's going to get lashes and he's going to pay a fine. So too, it could be that that's what the Torah wants here. The Torah wants in this situation It wants that there should be lashes. And it also wants this positive commandment that the Torah is asking us to do. Mr. Safdie, in halacha, you're correct that we say just give him the fix and no lashes. But that is the discussion of the Gemara. So the Gemara here, that Rabbi Yochanan, in his first statement, before he retracted, he said, Mr. Haber always likes to say, case, law, reason, correct? So if the question is, sometimes if the case is different, does that change the law? Not always. You say, I like to say, you say a bird creates on an apple, and you say a bird creates on an orange. They're two different cases, but the law is the same. They happen to both be fruits, and we don't say that the fact that you're a different fruit. Maybe if you're a vegetable, you say a different bracha. But being an apple and not an orange is not significant reason to change the bottom line law. So that's the question here. The case, this is not the classic case of a prohibition followed by a fix, because the fix precedes the prohibition. And it's also a fix, but it precedes the prohibition. It's independent of the prohibition. So does it still have a status of a fix or not? Everyone got the point there of the Gemara? What status do we have for a violation that there's a fix, but the fix, is the fix coming, do we say that the fix will remove the violation? Or do we say since the fix was given independent of the violation, so it's not just there as a fix, and therefore, if there was a violation, that will not be sufficient, and last will also have to be meted out. That is, in the beginning of Yochanan held that it's not considered a true fix, and you will need lashes. That's what Yochanan held in the beginning. Then he changed his mind. That's where we got to Tesvav and Aleph. We got to 15a, and Rabbah, as we explained, Rabbah said that there's no reason for him to change his mind. Why there's no reason for him to change his mind? Because we have the Mishnah. Our Mishnah states that if a guy goes into the camp and he's tameh, when he's contaminated, he's subject to lashes. And we said going into the camp contaminated, Torah says you're not allowed to contaminate your camp. You're not allowed to enter your camp in the state of contamination. That's what the Torah says. But there is a fix if a person enters the camp contaminated. What's the fix? The fix is to leave the camp. There's a mitzvah asay, leave the camp. Now, that mitzvah asay of leaving the camp, which is some sort of a fix, also applies even if he didn't violate the prohibition of contaminating the camp. As we said, you come into the camp and you become contaminated while in the camp, there was still no violation yet, as long as you didn't stay there a certain amount of time. So you didn't violate the prohibition, and yet there's a mitzvah, there's an asay that kicks in, a positive commandment that kicks in to leave. Now, what about if the guy stayed in the camp a significant amount of time? He did a very big sin. He should have left immediately. He violated the prohibition. He has a mitzvah to leave. And yet, even though he has a mitzvah to leave, we still give him lashes. So we see from here, even though the mitzvah to leave preceded the violation, it's not called a fix because it preceded the violation. And therefore, it's still subject to lashes. So we see a lo saseh, a violation that was preceded by a positive commandment, gets lashes. That's what Rabbah wanted to prove from the Mishnah. That's where we left off last week. And then we spoke about the following Gemara. Now we'll go back into the Gemara. What did you say? Rabbah is going on like Rabbi Yochanan, the first statement of Rabbi Yochanan, the original statement of Rabbi Yochanan, correct. He will get lashes. Say, look, correct. You sent to the group, you know that one? Yes, exactly. He is bringing back the first statement of Rabbi Yochanan, and he is saying, Rabbi Yochanan, there's no reason for him to change his mind because he has a Mishnah that's in support of him. So what does the Gemara shoot back? What did you say? Right, and he said, I changed my mind. And the Gemara is saying, Rapa saying, there's no need to change your mind. You want to change your mind, but you have a Mishnah on your side. There's no reason to change your mind. What do you do? So the Gemara says the following: Ella, we are on the Art Scroll 15a, 15a1. Ella, Yehuda, you want to check? It looks like it's not muted, right? It looks like it's on properly, right? The volume looks good? Yes. Very good. Thank you very much. Ella, the Gemara says, my time 5 lines from the top in the Hebrew section, and in the English section, good morning, Nathan. We are on 15a on the left column, like the second paragraph on the page of 15a1 in the Art Scroll. Ella, my time why did he change his mind? So the Gemara says, Mishum the Koshele Ones. Well, what's bothering him is the case of Ones. You have it, it's on 15a. The case of Ones, the case of rape, case of a terrible story, that's the case that drove Rabbi Yochanan to change his mind. Because as you know, the rabbis, when they come to decisions, they look at precedent, they look at cases, and then they apply that case to the question. You know, that's as you look at the Tshuvot of Vladi Yosef and Moshe Feinstein, they're constantly drawing from different cases, different Gemaras, morning, Mr. Batesh, and to apply that case to over here. And that's what they're doing over here. Reminding everyone about Birkat Torah. That's what they're doing over here. Rabbi Yochanan says, I have a case. What's the case? The case is if someone did a terrible sin and raped a woman. And after he rapes the woman, the Torah gives a mitzvah to marry this woman. There's an obligation, a positive commandment, if she wants to get married to him. He's crazy about her. That's why he did this act. Maybe he wanted to marry her before, she didn't want. And let's say he did this act, whatever the case was. He did a terrible sin. But the Torah says there's a mitzvah for him to marry her. He'll be, and not only he has to remain married her forever. And he's not allowed to divorce her. Now that will serve as a great deterrent for a man to ever rape a woman. But if he rapes this woman, he's stuck with her. He has to provide for her food, clothing, and be with her for the rest of his life. So which normal guy, which guy would want to do such a thing, to tie his hands in such a way and obligate him? Hopefully when you hit him at the pocket and you hit him in other ways, hopefully that will deter him from doing this terrible sin of raping this woman. But so we have here, how many mitzvahs do we have? We have a mitzvah to marry. He has a mitzvah to marry this woman. The case is called ones. He forced her. He has a mitzvah to marry her. He has a prohibition, that's what I say, to marry her. V'lo sihiyeh li'isha. To him, she shall be a wife. And then there's a pasuk, there's a lo saseh, there's a prohibition, lo yuchal l'shalcha. He cannot send her away. So she doesn't have to accept. She can say, I don't want to marry her. No, he has no choice. She's the only one with to say yes or no in this marriage. No, he has to pay a fine. He'll pay a fine to the father of this girl. Then there's a financial payment. That will be the financial payment, the fine. We're gonna give him a fine. He's gonna get a fine for this. We're gonna hit him at the pocket. Either way, he's gonna hit at the pocket. You know, if he marries her, he doesn't marry her. But he's not going to get away without a financial payment, and also other, for the embarrassment of her, the pain of her. There's a certain, the Torah gives a specific amount of money that he has to pay. Besides that amount of money, the Torah says he has to pay. He has to go ahead. Besides the specific amount the Torah says he has to pay, there's other payments as well for the pain, for the embarrassment, bullshit. There's other payments. Yeah. So mitzvahs are also classified as obligations. We have an obligation to put on tefillin every day. That's a mitzvah. It's an obligation. So we have an obligation to eat matzah on Pesach, on the night of Pesach, right? It's an obligation. It's a mitzvah. So he has this, one of the 248 mitzvahs in the Torah. Mitzvahs I say is to marry this woman if she wants. In general, marriage has to only be done with consent. Can't force a woman to get married to you. No marriage can be done without the consent of the woman. So that is. So now, what's unique about this case? What's unique about this case is this mitzvah to marry her applies, but in two situations. One, after he raped her, he has the mitzvah says marry her, and then the mitzvah. Now, if he goes ahead and he marries her and he divorces her, he has a mitzvah to marry her again. Is that clear? The mitzvah of marrying her will apply both after the rape, and both if after the rape he married her and divorced her, he now has a mitzvah to marry her again. He has an extra mitzvah, right? Now, the question is, if he divorced her, which is a violation of the Torah, because the Torah says he's not allowed to divorce his wife. In general, a husband has the right to divorce his wife. But here the Torah says he's not allowed to divorce her. But you know what? He went to some rabbis. He didn't tell him. He never told the rabbi that this is the case of that my wife was, I was forced to marry her. He didn't notify them. And they supervised the get. And whatever they signed, they went through it, they did a get. And he did a sin of giving her a divorce. But now the question is, now that he has a mitzvah to marry her, would that mitzvah, the fact that there's a mitzvah to marry her, would that, so to speak, be the fix for the violation? And there wouldn't be any lashes for this violation of giving her a divorce? That's the question. Will there be lashes for divorcing this woman? Again, he violated the Torah. He did an action. He divorced her. Generally a violation. If you do a lo saseh, you get lashes. But if this is considered a fix, and then the fix takes off the what? That's the fix to get me married, and there's no lashes. Or do you say, since the mitzvah of getting married to this woman had nothing to do with him divorcing this woman, so that mitzvah to marry her was not given specifically as a fix for the violation. It was given independent of the violation, and therefore it should be subject to lashes. Yes. If he stays, still got lashes. Right. Right. It seems to be same case, but obviously they're right, very good. Right. Right. They seem very good, similar cases, and for some reason, Rabbi Yochanan is more concerned, and the Mefarshim explain why. But he's more concerned about this case of the rapist case. He feels that this case of the rapist case would send us, will teach us that even though the positive commandment preceded the violation, it's still considered a fix. And it's still considered, and it will remove the lashes. Even though the obligation of marrying this woman, see, when we explain, we have the idea, if the Torah tells us don't do something, the Torah tells us if you did this thing wrong, I want you to do something. First, don't steal. But if you stole, I want you to return it. So the Torah is telling you what I want you to do. If you violate it, that's the fix. There's no other need for lashes. The Torah's not giving lashes. So just giving you the fix. Just give back the food, the item. Or don't leave till the morning. The Torah says, fix this, burn it. The Torah is not giving you lashes. The Torah is telling you something else I want from you. But over here, the question is when the mitzvah to do, so to speak, we'll call it the fix, had nothing to do with the violation, as well applies independent of the violation. So now that it's going to kick in after the violation was done, is that considered a real fix? Is that given as a fix, or is given not as the fix? Nathan, is that clear what the issue is? So that's the question of the Gemara. And now the Gemara wants to say Rabbi Yochanan was concerned, and he wanted to use the case of the rapist case to show that it's still called a fix, even though the positive commandment came independent of the violation, and there wouldn't be any lashes. So look at the Gemara inside. Elamai time mahadabe mishum de kashale ones. What was bothering him was the case of the rapist, the Tanya. We learned in the Brighton, 5 lines from the top in the Hebrew, and in the Arts was in the first column, on the last paragraph on the last column on 15a. Ones shegiresh. An ones, someone who forced this woman, a rapist, that divorced, and he got married to this woman. He fulfilled the mitzvah of marrying her, but then he violated a prohibition and he divorced his wife. Shegiresh. Im Yisraelhu, if he's a Yisrael, non-Kohen, Marzir, he takes back his wife that he divorced, Ve'eno Luker, and he doesn't get lashes for violating the prohibition of divorcing her. He was not allowed to divorce his wife that he had raped. Again, he raped a single woman, then he married her, then he divorced her. He was not allowed to divorce her. And what are we going to do if he divorced her? We're going to go ahead and we're going to say he takes her back, but we're not going to give him lashes because he fixed the violation by remarrying her. Even though this mitzvah of marrying her came even if he did not divorce her. So we still see that it's still considered a fix. Im Kohenu, if the one who raped this girl and then married her was a Kohen, and then divorced her subsequently after he married her, he cannot take her back. Because a Kohen cannot marry a what? A divorcee, even his own divorcee. If a person divorces his wife, technically, as long as she doesn't marry someone else, he can remarry her. Even though it's very rare. I know of one case. Mr. Haber, you know of any case that someone divorced his wife and remarried her? You ever hear of such a thing?
That's a great reason.
You know of a case, Mr. President? I know of one case. But it takes a lot. I don't know. I don't remember. It's like a long time ago. Okay. Someone told me, so I heard a joke. It's not such a, it's an interesting joke. I don't know how you want to say it, but I'll tell you the joke. I don't usually say jokes. I'm not such a person with so many jokes. But the guy went ahead and he divorced his wife. Right after he divorced his wife, he said, could you marry me? I said, I don't understand. You just divorced me. Now you want to marry me? For a second wife, you're not so bad. Because what does it mean? There's a big mussar in the idea. What's the mussar? I heard this from my uncle, Rabbi London, my father-in-law's brother. He said, because a lot of people in life, they think they're going to divorce their wife, or we do better in the next one. But he said, for a second, a lot of times the second wife is not as simple. So you know what? As a second wife, you're not that bad. Okay, whatever. I'm just saying, but the mussar of the idea that sometimes recognize that it's not better. The case is not greener as people think. That he married a woman.
He can divorce her.
If a person marries a woman and she has an affair, he's not allowed to remain married to her. This is prohibited. The person, if a lady has an affair, it's over. The marriage is over. It's over. A lady has an affair one time, one night, with consent. She wasn't raped. We're talking about a lady who, with consent, a married woman who was raped, they're not forbidden, will not be forbidden to the husband. But a married woman who has one night consents with another man, the marriage is over. Anytime, it would seem to me, anytime there is a willingness of the woman to have an affair, he'd have to divorce her. Now, so the Gemara says back in our case, he's not, if the rapist divorced this woman that he married as a result of the rape, he married her, he divorced her. So if he's Israel, if he's non-Kohen, Mazbir, he takes her back, and he does not get lashes. In Kohen who, but if he's a Kohen, where he can't take her back, so there's no fix. If he's a Kohen, there's no fix on this violation. If he divorced this woman that he was not allowed to divorce, so he has no fix. That's right. That's by Galut. So very good. Ain't no look yet. It doesn't get now, but if he's a Kohen, he gets lashes and he doesn't take it back. Now, so the Gemara says, here's the proof. Yisrael, if he's a Yisrael, what do we say? If he's a Yisrael, if the one who raped this woman is the Yisrael, non-Kohen, Marzir ve'ena loker, he takes her back and he had subsequently divorced her, and he remarries her. He doesn't get lashes. Why doesn't he get lashes? Lo saseh shekodma aseh v'lilke. It's a lo saseh. It's that the Torah says don't divorce this woman, but it was preceded by it was also preceded by a positive commandment to marry her, and that mitzvah to marry her had nothing to do with the divorce. It worked in both after the divorce and independent of divorce. He was supposed to marry her. So therefore, if you say a violation that a positive commandment preceded the violation, it's not called a fix, because it comes not only as following the violation, it's coming independent of the violation. So why does he should get lashes? So we see from here, that's where Rabbi Yochanan retracted. Rabbi Yochanan says we see from here that as long as there's a mitzvah, there's a positive commandment that comes following a violation, even though this positive commandment came before the violation, it still serves as a proper fix, and it's not subsequently doesn't get lashes as a result of the violation. That's what Rabbi Yochanan wants to say. I think if the fact that the guy would have to marry her and be stuck with her for the rest of his life, that means he's gonna have to pay every week, every day for the rest of his life. He has to provide food for this woman, clothing for this woman. I'm just trying to speculate. Why would a lady want to marry such a guy? Now, one thing is a lady might say, listen, he's crazy about me. He didn't even control himself. So, maybe she'll say, and she said, who else is going to want to marry? I was already violated. I'm no longer a Betula. I'm no longer a virgin. This week's parasha, we have about a Betula, about Rivka, that Rivka was so modest. It says that Torah, she was modest, that she was a Betula. And she didn't sleep with a man in any normal or not normal fashion, even though that was common in those days. The women were not modest, and they would allow themselves to be with men in a not normal fashion. And Rivka was very modest. And I wanted to say that the Torah emphasized that Rivka was Tova Maramo, exceedingly gorgeous woman. Torah talks about Rivka as a very beautiful woman. And that's how we're introduced to Rivka. the obvious question is, why would the Torah highlight her physical features, that she's so beautiful? You would not, you would think that's something that people would highlight, but that the Torah itself would highlight that she was such a pretty woman, right? Why does the Torah highlight? You must save my question. Why does the Torah highlight? You'll learn the Mishlei Eshes, Sheker Hachein veHevel Hayofi Isha Yirat Hashem. The God-fearing woman is the main thing, and so it's the most greatest thing. And here the Torah emphasized that she was so pretty. So why? But I think the point is, but the same line the Torah says she was so pretty, said she wasn't violated in any fashion, even though the women in those times would allow themselves and willingly allow themselves to be violated, so to have these type of relations. And a woman, the prettier a woman is, the more challenging for a woman to remain innocent. A lady who's not so pretty doesn't have so many problems. I mean, in the time of the Gemara, these times, that might have been more of a concern. People shouldn't marry like that. Today's day and age, it's not. That's not. I think that's why the men got to get married young to control themselves, keep them under control. That's what I think. But I think the Torah wants to teach us the greatness of Rivka. That if a lady who's very pretty, she has a challenge much more than anybody else. Just like a guy who's very handsome has a challenge more than a guy who's not handsome. I know. Well, it's easy for you, Nathan. I know that. We all know that. I would think also. I would think if she said she doesn't want to marry him, that's a good question. Would he get lashes if after he divorced? Because it would seem that she should have the same way she has the right to say no in the first time. I presume she has the right to say no the second time after he divorced her. Now the question is, he has no way to fix because she says no, so maybe he should be subject to lashes, because there's no way, unless we say that the fact that she could change her mind and say, I want to marry you, even though she doesn't want to marry him, there's a possibility of still fixing it. Meaning the fact that she says today she doesn't want to marry him, it could be if she says she doesn't want to marry him and then she marries someone else, then there's no fix, and then he should have to get lashes. But if she says today I don't want to marry you, and there's a possibility that tomorrow she'll change her mind, so then there is a fix. And then we can't give lashes to this guy if the fix is still a hypothetical possible fix. It's a time period. It's only when there is no possibility that the fix should be done. That's what I would think. Okay. I mean, but you know what? The same reason why she was willing to marry him the first time, maybe she wants to marry him the second. He wants out. He's divorcing her, but he's not allowed to get out. He's stuck. I'm going to tell him you have to take her back. Yes. No, it will not make that. That's the thing, Mr. Safdie, because Zona is a woman. A Kohen can't marry a Zona, certain women that have some forbidden relationships. That's why a Kohen will not marry I'm going to answer Mr. Safdie's case. She was not married when he violated her. A single girl is a very big sin for the man to sleep with a single girl, but it does not make her a Zona. A Kohen doesn't marry, generally a Kohen will not marry a Balat Shuvah. A lady who's a Balat Shuvah will not marry. Why not? Because maybe she was active with a non-Jew. If she sleeps with a non-Jew, since that sleeping was something that was a forbidden sleeping, that she can never marry that person, that sleeping with a non-Jew will make her forbidden to a Kohen. That will make her a Zona. But if she slept with the Jew, will not make her forbidden. But the fact that there's possibility, there's a good possibility that she slept with a wife, because if she slept with a Jew, even though it was in sin, but that's a relationship that has potential. that type of relationship, and therefore that will not make her a zonah. And that's why a Kohen can't marry a Baal Shuvah. Maybe she was active with someone who was not Jewish, and therefore that will make her forbidden to marry the Kohen. So Kohen will not be able to marry that single woman who was active with a non-Jew. Okay. So back to the Gemara. So Ama Ula. So Ula comes back and he says, or Ula comes and he says, we'll see him coming back. The Gemara will say later. Ula says no. The case of the rape case is not a case of a violation that was preceded by a positive commandment. Rather, it's a case just like the case of thievery. It's a case of lav, a violation that's followed by a mitzvah, period. The whole mitzvah, the whole commandment of marrying this woman was given specifically to fix up the violation. And therefore, that's why there's no lashes. It's not the case. You thought that this mitzvah aseh of marrying her was coming as a both before the violation and after the violation. Before the violation of divorcing her, he had a mitzvah to marry her. And after the violation of divorcing her, he has a mitzvah to marry her. And therefore, you thought this is a case of a violation preceded by a positive commandment, and therefore you wanted to use this as a source that you don't get lashes. He says no. This case, the mitzvah to marry this woman came specifically for following the violation. It's coming specifically only. The whole point of the Torah writing this verse, marrying this woman, was only coming to address if the guy violated the prohibition of divorcing her. It was not coming for before the divorce. It was not coming as a mitzvah following the rape. Because following the rape that he needs to marry her, we know from somewhere else. And since we know that from somewhere else, therefore this is not coming for that purpose. Okay? Is that clear what the Gemara is saying? And therefore, if I'm going to show you that this is coming for something else, that's why it's called alav hanitak laseh. It's a violation. Good morning, Mr. Ajmi. It's a violation that's coming with a positive commandment as a total fix. And this positive commandment is not coming independent of the violation. Now, how could that be? How could we say that this mitzvah, if a person raped a woman, he has a mitzvah to marry her, how do we say that this mitzvah of marrying her comes only after the violation of divorcing her, when the Torah writes about this mitzvah to marry her even before he divorced her? So how can we say that this mitzvah of marrying her is only after he divorced her? So the Gemara is going to suggest that I know from some other case in the Torah, we're going to say, let's say Motzi Shemra, I know from another case this phenomenon that if someone did a certain type of sin, that the Torah teaches you need to marry her. I know there's another case of the Torah that a person has, Torah says you have to remain with this woman. And based from that other case, I will be able to learn this mitzvah over here as well. I would be able to learn here also that he has the mitzvah to marry her. And therefore, even if the Torah would not have said, don't divorce her, I would already know to marry her. So why does the Torah tell us the mitzvah to marry her if I already would know it without the Torah telling us? Because the Torah telling us the mitzvah to marry this woman that he raped is coming specifically to tell me if you divorce this woman that you raped, you got to marry her. To tell me that initially you have to marry her, that we already know. from some other situation. And therefore, this mitzvah to marry is specifically coming to address a specific situation if he divorced her. It's specifically coming as a fix of the violation of not to divorce this woman that you raped. So since it's coming specifically as a fix, therefore it's called a lav hanidak la'aseh, and there's no lashes. It's just like the Torah says, if you leave over to the morning, the korban, burn it. There's no lashes, because the Torah says, that's the fix, burn it. Torah says, don't steal. If you steal, what are you going to do, Nathan? Not you. So what does someone have to do if they still have to return it? That's the fix, nothing else. So to here, Torah says, don't divorce this woman that you raped and you married. Don't divorce her after you married her after the rape. And if you do divorce her, Torah is telling you, this is what you need to do. What do you need to do? Marry her. Therefore, since it's coming only in a situation as a fix post the violation, this pasuk is not coming for prior to the violation. It's only post violation. Therefore, it's not considered an independent assay, independent positive commandment. It's only coming as a fix, and therefore there's no lashes. But if there would be a commandment that will come both after the violation and before the violation, maybe that's not coming specifically, and it's not coming specifically as a fix of a violation, because it implies even if you did not do the violation, that will not remove the lashes. That type of mitzvah, I say, positive commandment will not remove the lashes. And that's what the Gemara is going to say, and we're going to continue tomorrow from Ula, how he's going to prove this point. TBC, to be continued, everybody. A lot going on here, complicated, but shout out to everybody. I hope everyone's getting it, and have a great day, everybody. We could do it, everyone. Mr. Safdie says the Gemara is beautiful.